This is the I Read Comic Books podcast, the very best podcast for regular comic book fans. I'm your host, Mike Rapin, and joining me this week, two very good comics chosen by some really smart comic book people. This week, I'm joined by Brian Murray.
Hello. This
week, I'm also joined by Nick White.
You can call me Watchman, I guess.
Perfect. I'm excited to talk about comic books today because we're recording on an off night. Everything's changing. Everything's weird on our recording setup. But we get to talk about comic books, and that's the greatest thing that's ever happened on this podcast. Next week, we'll see. But for now, we're talking about comic books. So I have two legally mandated questions that I have to ask both of you, and specifically about the Eisner-nominated comic books of this year. So how have you been? How have comic books been? Let's start with you, Nick.
Well, as usual, don't want to talk about comic books. Lately, sure. I have just been... And it feels like these days it is so few pieces of media that just consume me and I tear through it like crazy. But I have just been rip-roaring through Silo on Apple TV. And
nice.
Guess what, folks? Haven't read the books. I read most of the first book, and then I lost it while visiting my mom at the hospital. So someone is enjoying Silo book 1. It's not me. I'm gonna have to buy it again. But
this is a Seinfeld Junior Mints moment, right? Where Nick accidentally tossed it into open surgery. That's what happened.
I tossed it into one of those like bins with all of like the used medical shit, and I've got to decide if I want to like get my hand in there and like with all of this like radioactive waste and shit.
Right.
I mean,
it was playing his own Saw game.
Yeah, I mean, it was the hardcover, so I'm probably going to do it. Look, enjoying the show, really enjoying the show. I think if you're looking at it and you're thinking, oh, it's post-apocalyptic, I've seen this, or oh gosh, it sure sounds an awful lot like Fallout. Like, don't fall for that. Check this out. I've really been enjoying it. So just some great performances in there. Tim Robbins is in it, just a surprise, and Common is in it, being Common. I swear he's playing. Yeah, I want to talk about.
What is the show
Silo.
about?
Oh yeah, sure. I don't have time to talk about that. Gosh, how can I tiptoe around any of this? Okay, so you've got 10,000 people. They're living in this thing called the Silo. They don't know why they're there. They don't know why it's not safe to go outside, and they don't know if they're ever going to be able to go out. I think that's literally the intro to the show, are those words. Okay. And I'm not going to say anything more than that because I may inadvertently say something I'm not supposed to.
It's pretty like twisty, turny.
And not just because it's a big corkscrew where all the stairs go around. And that's good, Brian. That was good. Totally it's really fascinating. Like if you're someone who's like examining it and you're like, well, gosh, why did they like not remember certain things, or why does their technology seem like weirdly advanced in this area, but it's like really weirdly behind in this area? Why are there no elevators? Why does it like, if you're someone who like goes crazy, like if you're someone who goes nuts over Ice Cream Man, I think you're going to go nuts over Silo, because there's that weird sort of like, why is this like this, but why is this like this? And everything has an answer. There's a logic to all of it. But I've really enjoyed it. There's 2 seasons out right now on Apple TV. If you're thinking, Nick, why do you have that? Look, I think I've brought this up on the show before. F1 moved to Apple TV. I am literally paying what I paid for F1, and I'm paying $4 more to get all of Apple TV on top of it. Why not?
Sure. And then you get access to things like Silo and Severance and
that,
all the other TV shows.
Foundations, and weirdly it is turned into, and I don't even know if this was the point, but like kind of semi niche, under the radar, but really good sci-fi for some reason. That's what they've cornered. I don't know how or why, but check it out. I know they've got another show that just showed up, which seems a little like Twin Peaksy. It's called like something Bay. I don't know. That's supposed to be really good too.
Widow's Bay.
Yes, that is supposed to be great. I might check that out next. But anyway, check out Silo. 2 seasons out, 10 episodes per season. And if you're like me, you got that wonderful experience of I'm coming right to the close, and the next season comes out next month. So it's like I showed up right at the perfect time where like all these other suckers have had to wait, and I get to wait for like 2 weeks or something. So anyway, just that's my recommendation. In terms of books, I want to talk about my Eisner nominee, which is
Nick. You didn't tell them the promo code to subscribe with Apple TV.
Yeah. Oh boy, let me tell you, I can't do too much shilling for Apple because let me tell you, I don't really have like I think any Apple devices at this point, which means Apple was like fighting me tooth and nail throughout the whole process. Like they're like like, we want to verify this with an Apple device. Like, do you have one? Can you answer this security question? When was Steve Jobs born? No. Anyway,
don't go wherever the dark place was that you were about to go in your head, Nick. Just tell us about your Eisner book, please.
Yeah. So, I read Crownsville. Crownsville is up for Best Limited Series. It's going up against Absolute Martian Manhunter, Beneath the Trees Where Nobody Sees, Rite of Spring, Bronze Faces, Everything Dead and Dying, and Out of Alcatraz. That's a really good field. I mean, I'll just be completely honest, and I think everyone on the show already knows this. I don't know if it will go. It probably will go to Absolute Martian Manhunter unless they're feeling a little elitist. And I would like to see it go to Out of Alcatraz. So that's just my take.
But you're not talking about either of those books. You're talking about Crownsville.
Could. Should we just not talk about this book? And
Nick, I swear to God.
If you start driving now, Mike, you can kick his ass by lunch tomorrow.
That's true. He'll have just finished his discussion by the time I get there, is what you're saying. Yeah.
I would say I'm going to derail the show, but I'm not sure we were ever firmly on the tracks.
Yeah.
So this was written by Rodney Barnes, perhaps best known for Star Wars Inquisitors, or Star Wars The Mandalorian, which has been, I think the first 2 seasons have been adapted into comics. And if you're thinking, who is that for? I don't know. And illustrations by Elia Benetti, who is largely known in America for Darth Vader covers, but also I think has done a bunch of Italian comics. At least that's what Comic Vine told me. And lettering by Marshall Dillon. So the book intro is as such, and I think it's a good primer for what this book is about. I think it's also a pretty good content warning for what you're going to get into, and a pretty good litmus test for like, is this book for me, or do I not want to do anything with this book, or at least make sure that it's the first book I read during the night and not the one right before bed.
Okay.
So I'll just read that to you. Crownsville State Hospital opened in 1911, just south of Baltimore, Maryland. A segregated institution established to treat African Americans with mental illness. The hospital quickly became home to all manner of marginalized patients, the mentally ill, the homeless, and even children with chronic medical conditions such as epilepsy. Behind locked doors, care soon gave way to confinement and abuse. Patients were routinely subjected to involuntary and unethical medical testing, and rumors of secret government-sanctioned experimentation flooded the halls. Nearly all of the patients admitted to Crownsville died within the asylum. More than 1,800 bodies remain buried on the grounds, its tormented souls bearing witness to years of neglect and cruelty. In 2004, Crownsville was permanently closed. The abandoned building continues to rot in silence, boarded up and fenced off to the public, yet a century of secrets stir within its decaying walls. Cool. This is not like the next Sonic book or something like that. This is
sure.
This is pretty weighty stuff, to say the least. I've always really been engaged, and I find really interesting comics that find a way to sort of fuse heavy nonfiction elements and fictional elements, especially on topics of like people or places that have largely been ignored or not really thought about or have been marginalized. Crownsville certainly fits that bill, 100%.
Right. Same with Blue Book. Same with Skinwalker Ranch. Like all those real, definitely.
The books that have me having to go to Wikipedia and go, which parts of this were made up and which parts of this are real. Yeah. AKA
this book is not made up. I should not be making a joke. This book is, I think, very real to an extent.
Well. parts of this definitely happened. Other parts veer into the supernatural, which, we can say, like, I mean, however you feel about ghosts, that's your own personal, topic to resolve, I guess. But yeah, I see what you're getting at. Yeah, I follow you. It's a serious book, guys. Okay.
Wasn't the Ghost TV show on CBS?
With Jennifer Love Hewitt? Yeah, there was.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry, Nick. I'm sorry. Brian is giving me a look.
Don't bring up shit like that with me. I'll go down whatever rabbit hole you want. We can talk about that.
No, I know. Listen, it's late. I'm sorry. Keep going.
So it follows veteran Capital Gazette journalist Paul Blair. He's just been notified that he's got one more month on the job before he'll be forced into an early retirement, newspaper sales being what they are. But until that day comes, Blair is still on the job. And that means heading to Crownsville to investigate the apparent hanging suicide of a security guard there. Coincidentally, this assignment comes right on the heels of Blair visiting his deeply ailing mother at the hospital. Before passing, she confesses to him that back in 1972, she was a nurse at Crownsville and was roped into a doctor's experiment in collaboration with Fort Meade to develop some sort of weapon. And it involved testing on 4 and 5-year-old African-American children exclusively. So again,
Yikes.
It's again, like, you can't say I didn't tell you what this book is about. It's layers of depressing stuff upon depressing stuff. But again, like, full credit to Barnes for at least laying it out at the beginning, so you know what you're getting into. But Blair's mother has this medical episode and passes before she reveals the specifics of what exactly went on. And Blair determines that, like, after for so many years of his life, basically towing the line, writing whatever has been asked of him, he feels, I think at one point he says, just, I've been dragged into writing so many puff pieces that he's going to do, like, one big assignment, one, like, big, gangbuster story before he leaves. And he recruits his associate, Annapolis police detective Mike Sims, to help investigate some of his mother's claims, which if he wasn't sure about whether or not he was going to do it, she starts showing up at his home and haunting him. So at that point, now you got a ghost to deal with, and so now you better deal with it. So yeah, there's a lot of ghost spooky stuff in this book. I think what I really appreciate about this book is that Barnes could have simply, like, walked his characters through Crownsville and, basically taken them from room to room and showing off all of the known and speculated horrors that the property inhabits. And I think in the wrong hands, it could, like, come across as some sort of, like, lurid haunted house or ghost hunting sort of experience. And it's like, in this room, this happened. And it's like, okay, like, one, this, I'm going to roll my eyes into, this doesn't seem respectful.
Right.
But with Barnes, the pacing is such, as well as he keeps switching back and forth between past and present narratives, showing some of the experiences that patients had, or actually showing some of the eyewitness experiences that Barnes's mother went through as this nurse in 72, to kind of intercut between them sort of navigating this sanitarium or hospital, and then also the experiences of the people that worked there and lived there and were forcibly kept there and died there over all the years. But Barnes also sort of suggests that some of the deeper systemic failures that underpin Crownsville can't easily be confined behind the hospital's front doors, and that some of the issues going on there obviously still, guys, I'm going to shock you here, but racism still exists. And some of the problems in when this hospital opened still persist to today. So some of that stuff is definitely sort of navigated and hinted at. And visually, though, I got to say, I don't think this is going to be everyone's bag. Personally, I'm kind of on the fence. Bonetti's art, I think you could draw some comparisons to Sienkiewicz or Templesmith. You could probably even make a better case for Martin Simmons, but there's like this blurry colored pencil cross-hatching blurring effect and light blooming effect. And if you look at any pages of this book, you'll see it, because he doesn't turn it off unless it's a flashback. Like you would expect maybe to see some of this during like the spookier scenes or like the, oh, what's happening next scenes. But it's also during the, like, I'm putting on my tie to go to work scenes. And it's also in the, I'm at a diner having lunch scenes. And it bugs me because and some of it's like through like a fisheye lens, and it starts to distort and contort the everyday slice of life moments to where I'm like, wait, what am I looking at in this panel? What am I seeing? And like, I understand that for the scarier, spookier stuff, but for like the everyday, like normal, like I'm going to the newspaper to work scenes, like I don't need you to put that filter on top, because now I'm actually not able to like cut through the panels at what I think would be the normal pace. Like this sounds really picky, but like I wish that filter or that effect or that art style just was not present there. Weirdly, the flashbacks are actually the scenes that are they're sepia tone, but none of the blur effect is gone. Like the flashbacks are clear and normal, and the normal present day stuff is fuzzy and weird. Did someone like hit the invert button? And I don't know. I still think there's solid art under there, but I wish this, whatever is going on, just wasn't ever present. But
I'd be curious to know if this is like how this artist normally draws, like just everything, or if like because you know some people do that. Like there's like a scritchiness to some people's art, and like that is intentional. Or is this an effect that they're adding specifically to this book? I was Googling and just looking through like some images from this book, and I see what you mean. It definitely feels like an intentional effect and not so much like their art style. But I don't know. We could probably dissect this a lot.
Like English major in me would say, Nick, well, this effect is happening in the day-to-day to show the unease, the persistent unease that happens throughout all of society in all aspects, and that's why it's there, and you're just not smart enough to figure it out. So that's probably what's happening.
I don't know if it's that.
Okay.
I think I mean I could see that. Yeah. It's just it'd be, again, there's something to be. I'd have to look through more of the pages to see, you know, the comparison between these flashbacks, and I really have to look at other art from this artist. But it's interesting that I think there is like a very extreme like preciseness to this illustrator's like style that is very much akin to a Martin Simmons, but I do think that the consistency is better than artists like Sienkiewicz or Simmons, where you're like, I'm looking at characters in your book and they don't really look the same page to page outside of like those characteristics that draw them. Whereas this guy clearly is drawing the same dude every single page from what I've seen in the previews. So it's very interesting to compare them like that. But
yeah, I mean, honestly, I would say check it out. I think it's fascinating. I think I'm going to tiptoe around this as much as I can, but the book definitely starts to take a twist at the midway point and starts to really leap away from some of the more grounded history. And I don't mean that in a bad way, but it starts to get a little bit imaginative and speculative. Not that all of the ghosts and crazy shit in the first 3 issues wasn't, you know, crazy and spooky and scary, but he starts to take some of the rumors and speculation about experiments and other things and take it to a very interesting and disturbing conclusion. And I'll leave it at that. But it's going interesting in weird places. And I would say check it out because it's not done. I suppose I probably implied that, but I should say that. If you're going out right now to go and read this book, it's not completed at this point.
Right, just the first 3 issues, and so you'll have to follow up once the rest of the issues out to see if the book lands. But interesting. So nominated against some pretty good contenders. Yeah, good luck.
Some
good
really
luck,
tough stuff. Beneath the Trees and Out of Alcatraz are both very strong books, and I started Bronze Faces but haven't finished it yet. So,
gotcha. Well, Brian, let's move over to you. How have you been? How have comic books been? What Eisner nominated book did you read?
What Apple TV show do you want to talk about?
Yeah. That's a better question. Thank you. Yeah.
I am actually going to spoil everything from Silo.
Oh no! No! I gotta go get that book right now.
No, I've been good. Today's a very big day. June 18th. The DLC for Dave the Diver came out today.
Oh.
So getting new Dave the Diver content for the first time in 3 years. It's very
Didn't
exciting.
that get like a Godzilla crossover at some point?
Yeah.
It's like, did I fucking imagine that? Okay, good.
Okay, I'm so curious. We're gonna save it for the post show.
It's a fun game. Check it out.
Mike, it's a you game. It's 100% a you. It's a you game. It's
Listen, I don't need any more roguelites in my life. But Brian, tell us.
For my topic, I went after the best adaptation from another medium category.
Okay.
Includes Alana the First Adventure, The Complete Angler, Dead Man Walking, Ghost Boys, Lord of the Flies, and my pick, A Wizard of Earthsea.
Okay.
This
I only recognize the Lord of the Flies, so and this book. So I'm curious to know.
I looked up Complete Angler. It's literally a fishing manual from like 1640. I am not making this up. I'm serious, but it's really cool. Go look it up. I looked it up. It's this guy and he loves fishing in England, and it's like 600 years old.
Okay, I'm gonna look that up. Brian, tell us about A Wizard of Earthsea, please.
Yeah, it was between this or Lord of the Flies for me as well.
Gotcha.
Because I was in Lord of the Flies, the play, in high school.
Oh shit!
Okay.
That was my big moment, my time to shine. Instead, I picked Wizard of Earthsea because if there's one thing I love, it's long, overwrought fantasies, and Le Guin is a great source for those. I have not actually read A Wizard of Earthsea, so this is I don't have like that comparison to make between like the novel and the adaptation, and is this a good adaptation or not. It's a really good book, though.
I was gonna say, like, the litmus test for me is always like, even if you haven't read the source material, if it compels you to go pick up the actual book or continue the series in prose or whatever, then that's something in its own right, honestly.
I'm almost definitely not going to do that.
I was about to say, and here comes Brian to completely set the alley-oop up, and Brian just, missed the dunk. That's okay.
The prose was definitely my least favorite part of this.
That's really
and it's not because it's bad. Like, it's an interesting story, and it's well told, but it suffers very much from, like, it's written like a 60s fantasy book, which is to say that it's very verbose, and the sentence structure is what I would describe as tortured in places.
I did read that they tried to really keep a lot of the language, but obviously have an understanding for when to shift, as opposed to, like, I don't know if anybody remembers the adaptation of Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, where they included every single word of the actual book. Okay.
No.
Yeah, well.
No thanks.
Yeah, well, it happened. It happened. What a bad idea. Anyway, Brian, go ahead.
Fortunately, the artist on this, Fred Fordham, did a phenomenal job. These are some of the more gorgeous comic book pages I've ever seen. Everything is like painted, and so it's not always super easy to like tell detail. Like, characters' faces aren't always like as expressive as I might want them to be, or I might sometimes have trouble making out like patterns on clothing and stuff like that. But whatever it lacks there, it more than makes up for in that like richness and texture that like painterly quality brings to it. You can, feels almost pretentious to say, but the brush strokes are so
quite good. It's quite good. Oh man. Let me ask you, Brian, because I feel like this is something I notice, because I saw some of the preview pages of this book. Sometimes when an artist has a painterly style like this, sometimes it doesn't feel like it's sequential art or that it flows from panel to panel. It almost feels like, let me show you a painting. Let me show you another painting. Here's another painting. Now you figure out how these go together. Like, does it feel like the flow and the sequential, nature of it works, or does it feel like someone's walking you through a gallery?
I think it works. I think there are some parts of the book where a large part of the main character's life is kind of like passing in montage, basically. Mm-hmm. And so in those circumstances, like, it's not always easy to tell that that's what's happening. It does have some really beautiful, like, big 1 or 2 page spreads that definitely look like they could just be like gallery pieces. But I think they're used in such a way that, like, they make sense. Like, it's no more jarring to the reading process than, a big splash page in a superhero comic book would be.
Yeah, I'm seeing like previews I'm reading through looking through like the preview pages that are on like the comics beat, and like I see what you mean. Like, there's not a lot of detail except for when there's the perfect amount of detail on some of these pages. Like, one of the pages they show on the beat is like the sun setting and reflecting on this village, and like the way that the artist has decided to like depict the orange onto the greens and the buildings. I'm like, oh no, that's actually a sunset that someone painted like as a reflection. It feels so true to life. I'm like impressed by the ability of the artist to capture that same feeling. But then you on the opposite page, you can see some faces, and the details aren't perfect. But I don't think that takes away from looking at this book. This book looks phenomenal. Holy shit.
Yeah. Yeah. And even like when I might enjoy more detail, I didn't need more detail, is I think how I would phrase that.
And so do you know if this covers like the entirety of this Wizard of Earthsea book? This isn't like part 1 of 6 or something like that.
I don't know. It does end at a very conclusion-y spot.
Okay.
It's basically the tale of Sparrowhawk, or Get If You're Nasty. And as the turn of phrase that came to my mind is how he came to be king shit of Wizard Mountain.
Okay. Interesting.
Because it's very much like nobody like outright calls him the chosen one, but he's very much like a prodigy who comes out of nowhere and is learning magic better than anybody's ever done it.
Of course.
Gotcha.
Yeah. It ends with him like concluding an arc, and what could be read as like, if I didn't know this character was in other stuff, I could believe that this is like the end of his story.
Gotcha. Interesting. But yeah, this is I didn't realize that this was a book that was released, let alone nominated. So I've always meant to read this book. So maybe I can actually finally get the story through comic book form. So I appreciate you bringing it up.
And it'll take you 2 hours instead of a week and a half.
Yeah. Great. Well, yeah, I wonder, I haven't seen, I don't know any of the other nominees, like whether or not they're better or whatever. This isn't one of those nominee like groups that I'm like familiar with the works, but I do see some names in here that I recommend, or recognize, like Vita Ayala. And well, that's it. I just know Vita's name. So either way, it'd be interesting to see how this turns out. I find, we've done whole episodes about comic book adaptations of novels and stuff like that. And it is interesting to see that every year we're still like getting more and more of those. Now the angler fish thing or whatever that's an insane adaptation. But still, the Complete Angler, if you Google that, is like a whole thing on top of that. Like, it's not just that one book. It's like a website. It's a whole other thing. So I don't know. I want to look into that more. But let me talk about the book that is on the top of my pile, or not top of my pile, what I've been reading. I put this on the top of my pile a while ago, which is why I said it. It's called Raised by Ghosts. And this is by Brianna Lowenson. put this on top of my pile a few weeks ago, and then it sat on my desk and kind of just stared at me angrily because I was really worried that it was going to make me sad. And I'm trying to enjoy life as much as possible right now. And I know. Fuck me, right? But I really was worried that this is going to like tear me up. Fortunately, it is not nearly as sad as the kind of description of the book makes it seem, as it's about this young girl named Brianna, semi-autobiographical. She's growing up in the mid to late 90s as a middle schooler and then a teenager in high school. And fortunately, again, it is not as sad as I thought. It's more just melancholic, right? It is. There's this feeling, and it might just be because it was a book, made in the 90s. It reminds me of like a slow Smashing Pumpkins song, like begging to kick in the gainy guitars and heavy drums, but never finding the time or reason to do so before the track ends. Like that is the vibe of the entire story. You're waiting for the wheel to turn over into this awful tragedy, right? Something has to strike this character and like really make them hurt. We never get to that. And instead it's very like, I don't know, it reminded me a lot of just general middle school and high school because I grew up roughly around the same time. I also think that feeling comes from like the brown and orange and dark like color scheme that is used in this book. It feels very much like a 90s era music video. I'm thinking like Smells Like Teen Spirit or pretty much anything from the Smashing Pumpkins again. Like that's just where my mind is.
Is the melancholy oriented? Was the melancholy a deliberate?
I smashed a pumpkin on my head before I started writing today. Okay. So like that's where I'm at. But yeah, like again, it follows this girl as she tries to balance like the chaos of teenage years, right? Like making friends, keeping friends, struggling in school, her parents being not the best parents you could think of, trying to exist in and around the music scene, having friendships, fall apart and come back together. For some reason, this book, like I said, really resonated with me because it's like everything about it. Like there was no internet, but like we were so close to mass communication. So it's like falling asleep, talking to your friend on the phone, or, like making plans with somebody, not knowing when they're going to arrive because you have no way to communicate with them. You're just like, hey, Steve's going to pick me up before we go to the show sometime between 5 o'clock and 8 o'clock. And the show starts at 7, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. That's just how I have to live my life. Like the cartooning of this book is interesting too. Like it's very, like I said, like brown and orange and dark. There's like this cartoony style to this book that feels very middle grade, but the color palette of this book makes it feel more mature despite all of that. It's generally like sad in feeling overall. I think she does a really good job of only showing the characters that are in Brianna's life in a good way, more than the characters that are in her life in a bad way, right? So we never actually meet her parents or see her parents, though she talks to them quite often. We never see any of her teachers for the most part, even though she talks to them quite often. And I don't know, like the portrayal again is it's very middle grade. You get a lot of emoting and a lot of simple faces and designs. Like the overall style of this book is very simple, but like I think it still manages to work because it feels like art for the age group in which the story is about. I was also worried a little bit, like upon initial scan of this book, like every other page or every third or fourth page is like a big chunk of prose. And I was kind of worried that it was going to like really screw up the reading process. But I found like that speed up and slow down actually worked really well to create this sort of rhythm throughout the story, where every time we saw like a few pages of comics, we got like a single or sometimes two in a row of like prose that kind of add more color to either the situation we just saw or the situation we're about to see next. It was a really smart way to do that because each of those pages are scanned in physical pieces of paper or cardboard or scraps of lined paper that she has then taken the digital lettering and put on top of, or maybe she actually wrote on them, because it's very well done. And I like that a lot. Like if you guys ever saw that book, my favorite thing is Monsters, where it's like aligned pages of a book that she just scanned in super high resolution and didn't clean up. It's just like the pages scanned in as is. It's each of those pages are kind of like that. I found that to be really interesting. There's like a physicality to this book that again like throws back to the analog vibe that this whole book is about, like making mixtapes and calling your friends on the phone and riding 6 people in the back of a car and like going to a show and being really tired and not knowing how you're going to get back and only having $4 to give your friend gas. Like it's all of these things like I felt very nostalgic for. I felt very like melancholic for. So like I think that fits this book very perfectly. Like I wrote this down, like, I'm just going to read it out because it feels like the end of a 90s movie and it's perfect. Like, who remembers their teenage years as shiny, happy days? Who didn't have moments where friendships drifted apart and then found themselves back together? Who didn't feel anxious about making the perfect mixtape? Who didn't worry about their grades in school? Like, I think this is a very pointed book because it takes place in a very specific time about a specific person. And I happen to be one of those people that lived through that time. So maybe this book just hits a little bit more. But I think that's like a great time capsule for a story like this. And I understand why it was nominated, for best graphic memoir. I should have started my whole pitch with that, but best graphic memoir, because it is semi-autobiographical, but she's clearly like taking little bits and pieces away to like maybe remove or add more drama. I can't really tell. But yeah, I like the overall vibe of this book. And the one thing that kind of sold me on it, because it just feels like a series of little bits and stories that are a little sad. There's a section in this book, and I'm going to show the folks who are watching the video at home. It's like the pages change. Something happens in the book. And I can't explain it without really telling you every bit and moment of this story. But I think a book club could sit down and analyze this chunk of the text, and you could all come away with very different interpretations of like what happens in that moment, because something happens to this character, this Brianna in the story, maybe Brianna in real life, where all of her life up to this point exists, and she is kind of sad about it because her parents suck, and not in like a regular way. Like her mom is not a nice person. Her dad is like a deadbeat. Her friends are kind of there, but they're not there. She doesn't know where she sits with them. Like, who hasn't felt that feeling? And then something happens. And there's this big, long chunk of the story. And then we get to the end. And it's not the end because her life continues, right? Like, she lives on the rest of her life, but changed. And what that change is in the book is so up to interpretation. I loved that there was no explanation. It's not told what happens. We kind of have to just end the book with this thing, knowing that she changes for the better is kind of the question mark, that is. And I'm like, like, I was left with a really satisfied feeling that I think maybe some people wouldn't be, but I really liked the just ambiguousness of it to make you interpret it. And like, I took it one way. I'm sure, again, a book club of people, everybody would have a different take on it. So yeah, nominated for best graphic memoir against The Ephemerata, Shaping the Exquisite Nature of Grief by Carol Tyler, My Life in 24 Frames Per Second, It Rhymes with Takai, Precious Rubbish, Talking to My Father's Ghost. Like, oh man, if this is one of the contenders, I gotta imagine the rest are really great. I've already read Talking to My Father's Ghost, which was incredible. So, Eisners going crazy
this week's sponsor is BetterHelp. BetterHelp, it's definitely
thank you.
Anyway, use the code IRCB for 50% off your first 6 sessions, and check it out.
With an acronym like that, it probably works. Don't tell people to go do that. We're not actually going to get money from that.
Shit, guys, use my code. That's no.
N White.
Yeah.
So we all read some Eisner books. I am curious to know what you guys think about the Eisners. Maybe we'll talk a little bit more at the end of the show about it. But let's move on to top of our pile because we got to do that. Let's talk about books that are new or old or just something you're trying to get off of your shelf. I think I'm going to pitch over to Brian. What is on the top of your pile this week?
So the top of my pile is a book called M1 Monster Racing League.
Okay.
This is written by Lily and Robert Wyndham, art by Jay Lee, colors by June Chung, letters by Joe Sabino. This is another one of those where I'm just going to have to like read the summary to get a good idea of what's going on. When 17-year-old Dev moves to Japan, she stumbles into an underground world of illegal street racing where speed is power and mutation wins championships. This high-octane sci-fi drama set in a near-future Tokyo is fast and furious by way of K-pop.
Oh boy!
Okay. All right, man. We're checking boxes. I like it. This is from Image, right? This is that Image book, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I think I saw the cover for this, and I was like, Jay Lee. What the hell?
Yeah. The cover is very weird.
Well, it's Jay Lee cover. Yeah.
I mean, it's what, dragons on the outside of like a Lamborghini or something.
Yeah.
There's like a symmetry to it. It's kind of weird.
It's definitely like mirrored down the middle.
Yeah.
But the character has like this weird hair thing going on.
Yeah. I mean, I'm looking at the variant covers. There's also one where there's a bunch of pets. I don't know what that's about. Interesting.
But yeah, I paged through just like the first few pages, and the art is like very interesting. Like I think I like it, but I'm not sure.
I think Brian's never seen a Jay Lee book before. I think that's what's happening right now, and we're just experiencing that in real time.
If I didn't like mark it.
Yeah. I mean, it's weird because Jay Lee has been in the industry for a really long time. You know, like they did, was it 30 Days of Night back in the day, or am I thinking something else?
Oh, I don't.
They did some really like dark and gritty books back in the day, and I remember
18 billion covers too. Like, see, I just remember all that weird shit with Tom King, that whole mess there. But yeah, whatever that was, who knows?
Stuff. I was surprised to see them coming back on a book because I hadn't seen them actually working on a book in a very long time. Brian, you will have to let us know about this because I saw this come up on Image Solicits and I was like, I don't know, man, this seems kind of weird. And from your reaction, it sounds like it is kind of weird. So that's a little exciting.
My reaction was also, I don't know, this seems kind of weird, but for me, that's a plus in its favor. So.
Yeah. Cool. Well, let me talk about a book on the top of my pile this week. I am looking forward to reading The Fourth Father. This is by Matteo Scalera. It's a comic book from Kickstarter, so you can't get it anymore unless you probably can. You can probably buy it from Matteo Scalera directly. You may know Matteo Scalera's name from his long run on Black Science with Rick Remender, a comic that I'm telling myself I will one day read because you got to remember thing that we talked about last week. In the post credits, go to patreon.com/IRCB podcast to get access to that. But anyways, dude's art's unreal. Like, if you haven't seen Matteo Scalera, do a quick Google search. His art is fantastic. I saw this Kickstarter a while back and I said, well, of course I'm going to get an original graphic novel by Matteo Scalera. The description of this book is a brand new 190-page graphic novel, a reflection on fatherhood with a touch of superhero nostalgia by Italian comic book artist Matteo Scalera. I mean, surely me being a new dad isn't going to change the way that I see this comic, right? I'm certain that's not going to be part of it. But this book is interesting specifically because it's all black and white. I think that's the thing that made me kind of pause, because Black Science had incredible coloring done by Dean White. So seeing Scalera's art without any color is a little new to me. And Scalera is an incredible illustrator, like, don't get me wrong, but I remember being so into Black Science because the color work was so good. So it's going to be interesting to read this book. I was paging through this before we jumped on the call tonight, and it is a good looking book. But I do think that it could use color. We'll see. Maybe once I get through it, I'll change my opinion on that. But 190 pages isn't too bad to sit down and read. So I'm looking forward to reading my digital copy of that.
Image.
My physical copy's coming soon.
Image release a desaturated version of Rick Remender's book. Call it Black, parenthetical, and White, and parenthetical Science. Come on.
I like it.
That's free money. There you go. You're welcome.
Promo code for imagecomics.com
also
is
Nick
/White.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
10% off.
Nick, to wrap us up here, tell us what is on the top of your pile this week.
I've also got an Image book because Red Roots 3 or Roots. I say Roots. Who says Roots?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
People from Michigan.
Do that? Is that? I don't know which one is Michigan at this. I don't know. Anyway, Image book written and drawn by Lorenzo De Felici. Best known perhaps for doing the art for Oblivion Song, and I think about the first 18 issues of Void Rivals, and also another OGN at Image called Chroma, which De Felici drew and wrote as well, with letters by Rasputin, who did the letters for The Walking Dead, Deadly Class, Void Rivals, 18 million other books. I still remember when Kirkman rolled out Oblivion Song, and honestly I was like very shocked because Kirkman is obviously known for picking, in my opinion, pretty crowd-pleasing artists. There's nothing wrong with that. The guy knows how to write a good book, but he also obviously knows how to make a fuck ton of money. For him, those have gone hand in hand for quite a long time. So I was really surprised when he picked De Felici, because for me, De Felici is... I can totally see why some people would be like, nah, this ain't for me. To be sure. So when the two reunited for Void Rivals, despite the fact that people are like, oh, Robert Kirkman is going to spin this off and do a series, we have no idea what. And I'm like, Oh, I don't care. I'm interested. I like De Felici. Who cares what this turns into? Of course, it turned into the Energon universe, which can go fuck itself for the most part. But again, I also never checked out Chroma, but I figure if Image is willing to give this guy another original work after, giving him an original work 2 or 3 years ago, he clearly knows what he's doing. Image frames this series, quote, as one where the lives of a professional killer and a high school teacher are bound by a terrifying, mysterious force, unquote. And to be honest, whoever wrote that knows even more than I did when I finished the first issue. It's rarefied air when a book manages to provide so few answers and let alone pose any questions beyond a what the fuck? What? And that's not because the visual language is hard to follow or the panel layouts are poorly sequenced or the action is messy. It's just an unrepentantly weird book that doesn't feel compelled, even in its make or break inaugural issue, to pry at the heart of said weirdness. One of the dual narratives features an elite agent codenamed Sand, who's hacking and slashing his way through some hardened compound, looking for someone got in a Polaroid picture. The other focuses in on a school teacher named Kate, who, upon returning home from a busy school day, makes an extremely disturbing discovery.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah. School rocks. I mean, what is more terrifying than working in the public school system, right? Guys, nobody get mad. Both my teachers are public school teachers. I went through public school. It's just funny. Okay, everyone relax. If you went to private school, shut up. The first is like this taciturn noir that revels in violence in as much as it neglects the written word. And the second kicks off as like a bright and quippy slice of life tale that suddenly isn't. Much like Lemire and Sorrentino's 1,000 Black Feathers, I found myself having to like return to the credits page to ensure that there wasn't actually a second artist for the second narrative, only to find out that De Felici was honestly at the helm for all of it, which is always like, that's always crazy when that happens. You're like, oh, who else did they get involved? Oh, wait, this is all him. Wow. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. It's a fast read that'll have you ripping through the pages as it propels the reader forward. And I think what this book does so well is that I've often seen these dual back and forth narrative books, and you're watching this narrative and you're watching that narrative, and you're like, how do these fit together? And usually there's like a weak link, like visually or narratively. One of them is more engaging and the other one is like, well, I'm just going to work my way through this and we'll get back to the thing that I find really exciting. Or both of them genuinely suck and you're like, well, both of these aren't great, but at some point they're going to come together and make something awesome, right? And until then, I'm just going to wait this out. But with this book, both parts are equally distinct yet compelling all by themselves. And the fact that looming over the top of this is the fact that there will be some confluence at some point is just a cherry on top. To say much more about this book would probably be too much. It really has to be experienced. I will say this, regardless of whether you did or didn't like issue number 1, absolutely read issue number 2. Because there's a really good chance that issue number 2 may possibly completely upend what you previously thought about the book after issue number 1. Good or bad.
Interesting.
Issue number 2 goes places and does things that are in a completely different direction. Seemingly. Who knows? Maybe it's even too soon to say that. But it takes things in a very different direction. And I think for some people, they're going to be like, oh, I don't know if I like where this is going. And some people are going to be like, oh, this is actually way more to my liking. And for some of you like me, you're just like, this is still really fucking awesome and really weird. And I'm so confused. And I love that this book is treating me like garbage and not answering any questions. And this book hates me, and I respect it for that. That's the poll quote.
This is why they keep giving him books, Nick. This description you've just given, Nick, is why De Felici keeps getting comics at Image for this exact reason. I didn't know they had another book out, so I'm interested already. I think I'll have to dig through this because I think we've either got some comps or I'll just go buy it on Sweet Shop, sweetshop.dev, or I don't know what the fuck it is.
First issue,
Kenny, you're welcome.
Yeah, first issue is like, I think it's down to like digitally, I think it's down to like $2 or $3, and it's like 50 pages. So just go check it out. It's so fucking weird, and it's good. It's really, really good. If you look at the cover for the first issue and you're like, I don't know, like that was me as well, guys. Like I actually didn't really love that main cover. So if you're looking at that, please, people say it all the time, but sometimes don't judge a book by its cover.
Okay, not on this podcast. Okay, we are. Did you see there was a Mike cover for this? Mike Mignola? Did you know that he only signs just the letter M on his covers now because he's that guy?
He's that busy.
He's that busy. There's a Mike Mignola cover for this. It is crazy.
I did hear about that. Yeah,
interesting.
Awesome.
So, interesting. Well, before we wrap up, I am curious to know your guys' thoughts on the Eisners in general. This is a can of worms I don't necessarily mean to open, but I'm curious to know, like, do you pay attention to this? Does this have any weight or bearing on the type of comics that you're reading, or whether or not you're going to read a comic? And Brian, I'll start with you. Like, looking through the list or whatever, were there things that you're like, oh, I've heard of this, now I think I want to read it because it got nominated, or does this not have an impact on you at all?
No, not really. I mean, I might check out that Lord of the Flies adaptation.
Sure.
But for the most part, maybe this is just because I grew up with bad taste in movies. Okay. So every time I would watch the Oscars with my parents, I'd be like, this is bullshit. Space Jam's not even in
any
here.
Of these things? Are these made up?
I actually don't remember if Space Jam was ever nominated for anything or not.
I don't think it was.
Yeah, my point is, like, that's the caliber of film that I was interested in. So, watching Schindler's List get a nod did not matter to me at all at the time.
Gotcha.
And that just kind of cemented in my head this idea that all awards are bullshit. And I'm just gonna watch or read or whatever I like.
Hey, I respect it.
I just have to share this because this is where my brain went, and I probably shouldn't be sharing this, but the moment you said it, I started in my mind thinking of the trailer for Schindler's List, and in the background it going, everybody get up, it's time to jam now. And I'm like, this is Brian's fault. I'm thinking this, but this is Brian's fault, so it's okay.
Anyway, I don't know how to segue out of that.
That's fine. Yeah. I wouldn't. It's Brian's fault.
Nick, Eisners. I know you and I, we've probably talked at length about just the weirdness of the Eisners and how it feels like it's a very much a closet of a handful of people that get nominated. But I'm curious to know, does the Eisner nomination or an Eisner nom or nod or something like that, does that influence your wanting to read something or saying I should probably get around to reading that finally, even though it's, been on my radar for a little bit?
I mean, like, full transparency, I think it's sort of like it's an ego stroking exercise where if I go down the list and it's a lot of stuff I've read, I'm like, yeah, I knew what I was doing. And if it's not, I'm like, this is shit. And what are these people doing? No.
Right.
Eisners are weird for me because, and this isn't anyone's fault. It's just an interesting observation. Like, I feel like they really try. People are going to say, that's not what's happening. We don't have an agenda. We just pick the best books, whatever. Shut up. When I look at the list, it feels like they're trying to really walk the line between populist works and then some really elitist shit. Actually, not the most elitist, but like semi-elitist shit that you've never ever read. But that's
like an adaptation of a 1650s fishing manual,
right? And then do you like Superman?
Sure.
So, which, by the way, like, I'm gonna go check out that. I don't even like fishing. Putting the worm on is gross. I don't like any of that shit. But I might read that. But beyond that, there's some stuff here that Ice Cream Man 43, great, nice to see it. Maybe I'll read the Power Fantasy one day. Who knows? Maybe. So, like, sometimes I see these things and, like, I'm like, maybe I'll finish it. Everything Dead and Dying, maybe I'll finish it. But, there's still some some stuff here where I'm like, oh yeah, like I've read this or I'm interested, but then there's other stuff where I'm like, I don't know.
Right, but it doesn't sound like it's that much of an influence on what you're reading.
Yeah, for the most part, I don't finish it and go. I don't come away with a list where I'm like these are the next 7 things I'm going to read. Like, you can't fucking tell me what I'm going to.
Right. I mean, we're mature comic book podcasters at this point. We are tastemakers.
I've got a lot of old G.I. Joe issues to read now, and I don't care about Alison Bechdel's latest work. No insult. We love Alison Bechtel. Okay, don't do that, Nick. It's
don't
just the one on the list in front of me right now as I'm scrolling. It's not personal.
The reason I bring this up is because I do think that there is a prestige to being nominated, right? Like just like Oscars, right? I think maybe 10, 20 years ago, it was a lot more impactful, right? Just like Oscar nominations, a lot more impactful in the sense of like, when you got that nomination. Harvey Awards are also in that same boat, right? Like Harvey Awards are another comic book nomination thing. We talked about it on the Fantagraphics episode, where specifically the Harvey Awards started with the Fantagraphics people and has, I think, since diverged from it. But regardless, like those nominations and that stamp on some of those books can be impactful for people who maybe don't know what to read. And I know that like who's going to a comic shop and going, I should only read the award-winning comics. But Barnes and Noble will put up a segment of it. Comic book shops will put up that segment. And I do think that it is influential to say, like, here are books that are recommended, that are award-winning, and they have a good reason to read them. And I think it is important still for us to say, like, Absolute Martian Manhunter should be right next to the Lord of the Flies adaptation, to be like, look, these both, if they win, right, both are equally like important in the comic sphere because of they were voted by the community to say, like, oh, this book is like a great piece of work for the year that it came out. So it's interesting because I think this is just a general question that I have in the back of my head is like, are award shows even important, or is it just a bunch of people like jerking each other off to say, like, hey, good job, dude, you were on the Bear, oh my god, of course that won, because it's a fucking art movie, right? So don't get me wrong, I like the Bear, but it's an interesting thing. I think one thing that I found most interesting about this year's Eisners is that the panelists who founded these books and chose these books completely different than previous years. I think the entire lineup of folks have changed, and I think that has added a little bit more diversity. And I'm not going to say a lot because it's definitely not a lot, especially if you look at the last like 5 years worth of comics where it's like the same 12 white guys getting nominated. But this year it's only 8 of those 12 white guys, which I think is a direct, a movement in the right direction. It's a question of like, had this group of people not changed, would Crownsville even be up there for best limited series? I don't know, and I'm not pointing at like blatant racism by the people before, but I do think that there's a trend. It's a thing that happens in America, and I just want to call it out because I saw some names on this year's panels, like judges list, and I found it to be really interesting to see like a very different group of people compared to previous years. So I'm curious to know, anybody out there, if you have thoughts on the Eisners, come hang out with our Discord, let me know, or email me, ircbpodcast@gmail.com. Any last thoughts about the Eisners before we wrap up here, guys?
Yeah, I think it's interesting you brought up the Oscars in terms of like maybe the dwindling currency of both the Oscars and the Eisners, because I do think obviously within the last 10 to 15 years, obviously in terms of the Oscars, but ever more so I think in terms of TV and even comic books as well, as small as an industry as it is, just for better or for worse, there's so much stuff out there, and these days whatever your interest is, probably there's so much stuff within that sphere that unless you're really pushing and trying, there might not be a lot of the motivation to move outside of it, just because you've got so much to consume where you are right now. And so I don't know if as many people these days are in that situation of like, what do I read next? I think most of us are probably drowning in stuff, but
sure. But I think maybe the other piece of this, and I'm sorry to keep dragging this on, is like, I think Oscar nominations are not a big deal for the Big 10 publishers, right? Oscar nominations are humongous for smaller publishers. Like, I'm going to say like an Avery Hill or a Silver Sprocket, right? Like to get one of their books. Yeah, I said Oscars. I meant Eisners. Thank you. Eisners are very big for that, right? Just like indie short films getting nominated for an Oscar is dramatically important because people are actually going to see these things. People will read these things. So there is like this hand-in-hand thing, or it may at least bring them to say like, oh, I saw that Caroline Cash's Pee Pee Poo Poo #1 was Eisner nominated. Maybe I'll check out something from Caroline Cash or from Silver Sprocket because somebody recognized that among these zillions of comics, even all the DC and Marvel comics and Image books and all that stuff, Caroline Cash's single one-shot deserve to be nominated, if not win, the Eisner. So like there is something to be said there, and I think it's interesting to see what books get nominated. And I think that's where it comes down to, because there is so many to read for us as readers, but also to nominate. If you're only going to nominate 8 books, how do you pick those 8 books, and why are 4 of them DC books? You know, like I have a certainty that there are other publishers in comic books out there that could have been nominated for some of these categories. So like it is a little frustrating. Anyways, I could talk about this all day. So that means I should probably end this episode. Brian, Nick, thank you for your time tonight. Thank you to the Goodreads and Storygraph people out there who are participating in our reading challenge this year. I didn't say it at the top of this episode, but this was one of the reading challenge episodes, which is why we all read an Eisner nominated comic. Thank you to Zander for editing. Thank you to no one for proof listening. And until next time, comics are good and so are you.